Okay, I can't resist saying that I saw in one of the articles about you, you were called a virtuoso. So what I want to do is start way before you were a virtuoso. Okay, I want to start back in Alabama.
Yeah.
Tell me about your family. Tell me a little bit about parents, where you were growing up, and then we'll build to the virtuoso.
Yeah. No, I grew up in Alabama, which is so whenever you play this icebreaker with people where it's like, say two things that are true, one's false, and guess the false one. I always say, I grew up in Alabama, and that's the one that it always gets everybody, because it's, no, there's no way, you don't have a Southern accent, you don't seem like a typical Alabamian. But I grew up in Alabama, so my parents immigrated to the U.S. Over 30 years ago, before I was born. From India.
Yeah, but where in India?
In Gujarat, on the western part of India.
Okay.
That's where Mahatma Gandhi actually grew up.
Another virtuoso.
Oh, yes, exactly. And so he grew up, so that's where my parents immigrated to the U.S. They were actually professionals on mechanical engineering and microbiology. So my dad mechanical, my mom micro. But they couldn't practice. In the 70s, you couldn't practice. You came to the U.S., you kind of had to figure out what you wanted to do, because you couldn't do the trade that you were kind of educated.
Because you didn't have the formal credentials that would be recognized.
Exactly, formal credentials. You didn't know really how to get like how you get a job in that space. And so they came. They actually worked in a carpet factory. They actually had very little, but they finally settled in Alabama, because one of the things at the time was the motel business. The motel industry was the thing that Indians were starting to kind of take over.
Yes.
And so they bought a little motel in Clanton, Alabama, which is actually near Selma, which was the heart of the civil rights movement.
Yes.
So I was actually born in a hospital in Selma. And so when I was about 2 years old, we moved to Birmingham, Alabama, and that's where I grew up. So that's when they bought a little bit bigger motel.
Right.
And I grew up, like, I'm a computer scientist, but I actually grew up on a motel, like just doing hotel stuff. So like we never had a normal house. Like our house was the apartment that was connected behind the lobby of the motel.
Yes.
So my chores were, you have to vacuum 50 rooms. You have to make the beds of 50 rooms. So I think I did the math one day. I think in my life I've done 10,000 beds or something like that. And my friends would complain about, I got to take out the trash. I got to do my chores. Like chores. I help clean with my brother and sister all these rooms. That's my chore, right? And so that's what I grew up in. And to me it was like, this is normal. You have the business in front of you right here, and then here's our little apartment. But we lived at the business, and so I could see how hard my parents would work. Right, I saw the hardship.
Right.
And Indian families they do everything for the kids, right?
Right.
Everything we're doing, they're not going to buy they don't buy anything for them. We got the fancy shoes and the shirts because it's all for the kids, right?
Can I stop and say, were they accepting of their situation because of the kids? Were they disappointed? I mean, these were professionals.
No, they're not. There's no disappointment. They were just looking. The reason why they moved to the U.S. is for an opportunity, right? Their parents were like, "Hey, go to the U.S. This is going to be the opportunity for you and their grandkids, right?"
Yeah.
So my dad's pretty big family, one of 9. My mom's one of 5.
Wow.
They all slowly, one would come get a green card, and then the next one comes. So it's kind of, they sponsored each one.
Got it.
And now they're all in the U.S. I have over 50 cousins.
The whole family.
Yeah, they're all over the U.S. All over the U.S. I always joke about anywhere I go in the U.S. I have a couch, right? Because I have cousins all over the place in the U.S.
Yeah.
But my dad's one kind of in the middle. My mom was on the older.
So I'm projecting, that may not be right, because I don't have the same kind of personal history. But are there books in their lives? I mean, they can't practice anymore. Is there technology interesting them? Is there anything from their? No.
It's
the chosen life.
It's the drive.
Yep. It's the drive.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, they have fascinating stories about how they even found, like at that time, you couldn't just Google for, businesses we can buy. There's nothing like that. It's just whoever came first had enough experience of like, hey, this motel thing, I can learn. And so we already pass it down. So somebody else from India would come, they'd work with the motel for us, help train them up, then help them buy theirs, right? And they just pass it along, right? And they had no clue. They had no clue how to run a business like that. But on-the-job training. It's just literally the American dream. It's literally living the American dream. They came in, they looked for an opportunity, and they just make
How many kids in the family? Just you and your sister?
Yeah, so I have a younger brother and younger sister, so I'm the oldest. Yep.
You're the oldest?
Yep.
Okay, so it may be a legend or it may be dead accurate. If they're doing all this for you, how much pressure are you getting in terms of schooling? How much are they expecting, at least from you, a certain kind of result in terms of?
They were really hands-off. I mean, you have Indian families that are very much about schooling. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to help with the family business and do well. They want us to do well, but I never thought we were pressured.
Oh, interesting.
They were like, we're going to support you. We're going to make it easy for you to go through the schooling. Like all of us were debt free. My sister went to med school without any debt. I went to grad school. I got a PhD in computer science. My brother got a PhD in chemical engineering. He's a professor in Chicago. I'm a professor at the University of Washington. My sister's an OBGYN. So we all became doctors in some way. PhDs are doctors.
Yes.
And what else could they hope for, right? But they made it easy. They made sure that we did not have hardship in terms of getting there. Right? So debt and they saved up to make sure that was going to happen. But we also learned hard work because through the motel. The motel is the thing that is what made me a hard worker, not because of school or so this innate thing that, I got to get the best grade in the world. It's like this is the thing that translated to me being a hard worker, which was kind of fascinating. That happened. That's why that's reflecting back. Like at the time, I didn't realize this is the thing that was happening. But that was the thing that really.
So are there books somewhere in those motel rooms? Are there, I'm looking for an intellectual source, but
I
it may not be there.
I have one for you.
Okay.
Yeah, so I would say we have to, so in the motel, so there's a couple of things. So in the motel, I had to be a lot hands-on. So I would help fix stuff, electrical breaks, right?
Oh, really?
So I was hands-on too. I'd fix, I know how to do weird stuff like fixing a vending machine. Or an ice maker, right? Like I know how to do stuff. And so if you fast forward like maybe 10, 20 years, like my research is electrical and plumbing. That's because I could actually do that in the hotel.
Stuff.
But anyway, let's start from the beginning. So I was very hands-on. So I would build stuff. So in the motel, we'd have a giant laundry room thing where all the linen would be done. And behind it, my parents would let me build a wood shop. So that's where I would do woodworking. And I would just build stuff. I would always be building stuff. Like my parents gave me a hammer, I guess when I was like 3 or 4, not a play hammer, but a real hammer. And I still have the scar on my finger to prove it. And so they just let me be creative. And so that was one thing. I was just always tinkering. And I think it was because, I was always tinkering. But the technical intellectual thing happened when, it was fascinating. So in the motel, so my parents kind of knew that technology was going to be a thing, but they didn't really know how, like they were not technologists. They knew nothing about computer science or anything like that. But they knew that, maybe he might be interested in technology. Maybe we got to get him to at least do some technical stuff.
Okay.
And I was pretty young. I mean, what was it? 3rd grade, maybe 4th grade. And so even them coming to the realization that technology is a thing was already fascinating.
Yes.
I don't know how that happened. They didn't have technical friends or anything like that. But so there was a person that was living in the motel who kind of was living there for an extended period for years. Like, I mean, he was probably living in the motel in one of the rooms for like a couple of years. Just instead of buying an apartment or renting an apartment, he just lived in the motel. But he was actually a computer guy. So he had an emergency, and so he got sick and he went to the doctor's office that evening, but never came back. So he actually passed away in the hospital. That's what we assumed. We actually never found out what actually happened to him. But he just told my dad, hey, I'm not feeling well. I'm going to go to the doctor and just let my dad know. Yeah, but never came back. And we assumed he passed away. We just kept the room there because, maybe their loved ones would come, kind of get their...
Yeah.
Nobody ever came. Like, I think for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, months, I think my parents just kept the room intact. But then we're like, we gotta get the room cleaned. We gotta rent this room now. Even his car was there. But he left all the stuff there. So, but he must have had a heart attack. And we actually don't know what happened. But he had a computer. He had a computer he was always using in the room. And my dad always talked to him a little bit about, what's this computer thing? I want my kid into it. And so we did this stuff. Part of the law is that, if nobody claims it, you can just take it and then we could donate it or whatever. But we kept the computer. Kept the little card too, but I think eventually just gave the card to somebody else. But that was my first computer. But it was kind of a bit advanced. I couldn't quite figure it out. So we had somebody that did the PBX systems in the motel. So the PBX systems are basically the switchboard right? So I actually have a weird talent, and I know how to program switchboards in motels. But anyway,
very weird.
Yeah,
Yes.
that is very weird. So that guy had a computer. He's like, hey, I'll take that off your hands. I'll give you this other one, just easier for the kid to use. And so my dad didn't know any better, and he made the exchange. But
How old is the kid at this point?
I am third grade, so let me see, third or fourth grade was it? So I'm probably like 7, 8,
Okay.
9.
Okay.
-ish.
Got it.
Yeah. And then so we'll make a trade. And later on we realized there was a bad trade. He gave us a really crappy computer, and he got a really nice one out of it. Yeah. But it didn't matter. It was a Texas Instrument TI 99A computer. It was a keyboard computer. We connect a TV to it. I learned how to program it. I wrote a racing game on it. I just taught myself how to code on this thing. Like that's literally what happened at third, fourth grade.
Yeah.
Like I learned how to write programs by myself. So there was a little manual that I used, but that was the thing. And then my parents were like, oh, you did that. And then we got an actual computer, like a more advanced computer, and say la vie, right? And then that's me. Like third, fourth grade is when I do what I do. But I wasn't always in the computers. Like if my parents had to predict what I do, they'd be like, oh, he'd be electrical engineer. Because I was also building a lot of these kinds of things, electronics, right? And so they'd take me to Radio Shack whenever I wanted to. When Radio Shack was actually one of these and not just a cell phone company selling you cell phones. Some would say, oh, he's going to be an electrical engineer. Some would say, my aunts and uncles, oh, he's going to be a doctor. Some would say a mechanical engineer, given all the tinkering I do. I built cars and go-karts. I was into go-karts. I actually knew how to fix go-karts. And they were like, anybody you would ask, they would say something different. And so that was fascinating.
And in fact, you could have gone any of those routes.
I could have. I
mean, they were not out of the ballpark. They didn't know which route you were going to take.
No, they just didn't know. But they weren't pushing me anymore. They weren't like any other. There's some families that you're going to be the doctor, you're going to be the lawyer.
Many families.
They're like, do what makes you happy.
Are you, by the way, a kind of lonely kid? Are you doing this by yourself? Are you finding any other kids your age who are?
So here in Alabama, they don't know. I mean, there's not. So in Alabama, what you do, I did what most Alabama kids do. Like dirt bikes and go-karts. My parents gave me a dirt bike, and that's a fascinating story that I'll talk to you about in a second. How I convinced my parents to get me a dirt bike. Most parents would not do such things, but yeah. So I did the Alabama thing, But not a lot of kids did this. Like I got internet really early, and my parents had no clue like how to get internet. Like I figured it out. I went to the phone book, made the phone calls. Like I figured it all out, right? So I kind of did it myself. And my brother and sister were younger, but then they kind of got into it, helping a little bit. But I was older than them. I mean, so 4 years older than my brother, and 7, 8 years with my sister. So I was kind of older than them. And
you were inventing yourself.
I was inventing myself, and little did I know I was inventing the future.
Yeah. Okay, how do I get you into school? When do I find a mentor for you?
Yeah, so it was interesting. Okay, yeah, no, so, along the way, I mean, Alabama schools aren't that great. And so it was funny because in, I think, first and second grade, they put me in all these remedial classes because they thought I had a learning disability. Part of it was, my parents, so I lived with my grandparents. And so in home, we spoke Gujarati, which was a native dialect.
Right.
And so I'm bilingual, but illiterate. So I can't read it and write it, but I can speak it really well. But then I didn't learn English until school started. But I mean, that didn't set me behind. There's a lot of research that shows that you can have bilingual kids, they're not going to have a language deficiency.
Yeah.
But I think I just had a different way of thinking about the world. So they thought, he didn't know how to do math. He doesn't know how to do this. So they put me in these remedial classes. But then I actually ended up in high school, I went to a gifted high school. So it was actually the other way around. Instead of remedial, it was, we need to accelerate him. So, so it's kind of, school was easy. It was kind of going through. But I think the education, so I literally just taught myself. I mean, I would say, you got fourth grade, you got fifth grade, sixth grade. Good teachers. I mean, starting to get some good, some great math teachers. So I'm starting to get some inspiration there. Sixth grade. I mean, I'm like full force computer. Like I knew everything about computers. Everything. Like that was also the time when the school system was asking me to help figure out how to fix their computers, program their computers. You got the sixth grader doing this. It's just,
Okay, now you didn't invent all computer science, so you must have gone to the library, picked up some books. I mean, what?
Gosh, how do you, it's a little bit of library, but at that time, there weren't good articles on this stuff, right? So I had to piece it together. So yes, libraries, I had the internet about fifth grade, so I could actually do some stuff there. I think really it was a combination of that, internet, and then also the manuals to these computers. Where,
okay.
So I was, but literally, this is fascinating, but being at a console and just like kind of working through it to figure out what to do is how I actually learned it. It's like you had a DOS prompt, MS-DOS prompt, and you see the little, less than the greater than sign, right? You got the C : \\. That's where I started, right? And I just started, reading a little bit, getting to one place, and then I think I started to capture kind of what the essence of this is, and I think I understood what it meant to like write programs and like try to go in there and do something beyond what you would just do with a regular piece of software.
So who's noticing this kid?
So who's my parents? My parents are totally noticing.
Your parents are noticing. They're giving you what you already are telling yourself you want.
Yeah, and so I think at that point they realize whatever he wants, we'll give him, because they also had this interesting insight too. Like whenever they got me something, they would give me 2 of some things. They're like, play with it, do whatever you want with this one thing. Here's the same thing. I get you 2 of it. I want you to break it open and learn how it works.
Wow.
Yeah, so they would do that for me sometimes too. So it's like, let's get 2 of them. Just play with this one. That's the pristine, fun, play with thing. Here's the one. If it's not broken open, then I haven't done my thing. Right.
So how do we get you from remedial to advanced?
So I think that's when 7th, 8th, 9th grade comes. 7th and 8th grade. So that's when we had a technology class. Of all things, a technology class. It was called Tech Ed, Technology Education. That one was quite fascinating. I think maybe 2 or 3 weeks in, I actually knew more than the teacher, which was fine, because he was very inspirational. He was trying his best to create a technology education course in Alabama in 7th grade.
So you were too good to be true as a student for him.
And so I would work with him to create curricula. And so that's when I'm like, that's when I got exposed to a little bit more technology. He had some more gadgets and gizmos I didn't realize existed. So that's when I was like hitting my stride. That's when I really knew the confidence started to build around this time.
Okay.
And the reason for this was they had these technology education competitions. These were called Technology Student Association ran these. So these were technology competitions. So you would actually enter these competitions and you could like build a robot and then get judged. You might take a test. So there's a bunch of different things you could enter. And then he wanted to really send some students there and never really tried it. But when he started working with me, he's like, let's try this TSA competition thing. So you basically get like maybe 6 months to build all these things. And I entered every category you could possibly can. So I think each student can do 3 categories. So I think I did robotics, technology. So you had to build you had to build a little robot. You had to build a really cool gadget, a circuit gadget. And then I forget what the third one was. But so I did my first year. I didn't really know what to expect, and I flopped. I didn't actually do well at all. Like I got there, got disqualified because I didn't follow the rules. And I didn't follow the rules because we didn't have the manual. And so even the teacher was learning at that time. And I'm like, next year, I'm going to own it. And so we got the manuals. We did it the right way. And in fact, I'm like, only 3? I can only enter 3 of these competitions? So I came up with a scheme, which was, hey, I can teach these other kids in the class to enter in some other ones. I'll just do the project for them, but they could just represent it. So I entered 9. So I had 2 other kids that are like, hey, I'm going to do these other categories. You don't have to do anything. I'll just build it and teach you how to explain it. And so this is where the dirt bike comes in. So my parents were kind of weird in this. They love trophies and awards. I won a lot of awards because in school at the end, the top grade in math and all that. So I get for some reason they love trophies. I don't know why, but I think probably it was just it's a culmination in that you got something, right? You succeeded or you exceeded something. And they made this weird bet with me, which is like, if you win 4 trophies at TSA, we'll get your dirt bike. They knew I couldn't attain it because I could only get 3 trophies. But I entered 9, right? Came home with 4 trophies. I got a dirt bike, right? But
so your father was as good as his word.
Yeah.
I mean.
Yeah. Like he knew that I can only get 3 because you can only 3, but little did he know that I had trained up 6 other students to enter the other categories. But yeah, I mean, I just blew, so my wife always kind of jokes about it. I got these trophies in our office at home. She's like, why do you have your high school trophies? He's like, nobody shows your high school trophies. I'm like, but those are the ones that like, that's the thing that gave me the confidence.
Yes.
I mean, so I still have those trophies in my house.
Before we move on from him, I think we need the guy's name, the technology teacher who who sent you in this direction.
Yeah,
So
Mr. Stallworth.
Mr. Stallworth.
Mr. Stallworth.
Okay, well,
yeah.
he's
Mr.
been
Stallworth.
acknowledged.
Yeah,
okay,
Mr.
so now we got to get you out of high school.
All right.
And
Well,
someplace.
this is on junior high.
Oh, this is junior high?
This is just junior high, by the way.
We're in junior high.
Yeah, think about
Okay.
it. I'm in junior high.
Okay, and this is not the
This is in
special.
Alabama. No, this is not special yet.
It's not special.
Yeah, and then my parents didn't know really how to navigate the school systems. They didn't, so I actually did the investigation myself. I'm like, look, I'm like maxing out here now. So I actually found out in the state of Alabama, and we went to Jefferson County. There was a high school called Jefferson County International Baccalaureate School. It's a public high school that's a feeder school for all the other junior highs, and basically you have to be gifted. You got to take a test, be gifted at a certain level, and then you get to go. And then the county did a cool thing where they bused all the kids there too. So if you couldn't drive there, if the kid or if your parents couldn't take you there,
They'd get you there.
And I lived on the other side of town, so my bus ride was like an hour. Ridiculous. But anyway, they didn't have. So I found out. I knew you had to get the testing. I'm like, I told my parents, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna get this testing. I'm gonna get this testing. And get this done. And I got in. And they're like, okay, and they were ecstatic. They're like, oh, that's a cool experience. So this was a great school. So it's kind of a little bit of an oxymoron having the best school in the U.S. in Alabama, but routinely the school was ranked #1 in the country.
Really?
As public high school, because we would take the best of the best in there, right? So being valedictorian of the best high school in the country is kind of cool.
Yeah.
Best public school, not private school. But
Right.
they offered almost all the AP classes. They had the International Baccalaureate program.
Wow.
So these I know now you talk about like these were my friends that are like now can speak my language. And so there were a lot of folks that are into technology, that were into art and literature.
And the facilities were
amazing.
Everything you needed.
Everything I needed. And there we had Mr. Hollis, who was my computer science teacher, right? And so he pushed me really hard. I did a lot more technology innovation things at the high school level.
Right.
I did really well in the school, valedictorian, all that kind of stuff.
Right.
But that really pushed me hard. And that was a hard school. And I did really well. And so, that was kind of like, I got lucky and got put in an environment that let me flourish, right?
Very lucky.
Very
lucky.
Very lucky.
But you also had the talent to make it work.
Sure, exactly.
So it was a combination of that.
Yeah, so I'm in high school and I graduate, go to Georgia Tech for undergrad.
Okay, so now you're going to let me ask you, why Georgia Tech? How did you plan the next step? Because you're a planner.
Yeah, I'm a planner. And I kind of had a battle plan. So in high school, I did research. So I went to the local university to do research, and that was dictated by my high school. In high school, every Wednesday, you didn't go take classes. You actually went to go do research at a lab or a university. Talk about progressive, right? And so that's when I started doing research. I did research with some computer science faculty at the University of Alabama at Birmingham. So at that point, I already kind of knew. I mean, this is the fascinating thing. People are like, how'd you become what you are? I'm like, I'm going to get a PhD in computer science. I'm going to probably do research, and I'm going to invent the future. I was already I knew my battle plan in high school, which is rare. And so I said, what are the great schools? You got MIT, you got Georgia Tech, and you got the West Coast. I want to be close to home, but not being too far. So Atlanta's about 2.5 hour drive from Birmingham. So Georgia Tech's a great school, not too close to home, not too far.
And you could still do the beds.
I could still do the beds. And I did. Actually, at a certain point in high school, I no longer did the beds. They knew how rigorous my high school was.
Right.
And so my brother and sister went to the same high school.
So Georgia Tech.
Hit the ground running there.
Because I know you as a kid now pretty well.
Okay.
And so I'm thinking you know what Georgia Tech's going to be particularly strong in.
Yeah.
What was the strength of Georgia Tech at that point
computer
when you
science.
entered?
Like computer science engineering, it's the best engineering school in the country.
Yeah.
Think about it, Georgia Institute of Technology, right?
But any particular branch of computer science, or is it still young enough?
At that point, I'm young enough that I was still malleable in that space. Right?
Okay.
I was just dabbling in everything in computing. In fact, I actually thought I was going to double major in computer science and electrical engineering because I was still doing this stuff. Right. And so I knew the hardware side and the software side pretty well. I did interesting. I started doing research early because remember, I got research experience in high school.
Right.
And so I sought out research faculty to do research with, like freshman year. So not only was I taking classes, I already started working with professors to do research. Hey, can I help out in research? And that's kind of where my career really, like where I am now, is because of my undergraduate research experience. So there's a faculty member, Gregory Abel, who actually ended up being my thesis advisor too, eventually. got me into this research area called ubiquitous computing. And I'm like, what the heck is that? But it sounds cool. And really the lure actually it was on Mondays at night, like 7 o'clock, and there was free food. And that lured me in.
Yeah.
But this ubiquitous computing thing sounded cool, and like gadgets. And so we had this thing called the Aware Home. So Georgia Tech was inventing the home of the future. So they had funding from the state of Georgia to build this home, and you can make it smart and do research in it. And so he gave me pretty much full reign of this. Go do what you want in this house. So I built all these gadgets and gizmos. Hey, remember I could do electrical? So I would sneak in at night to like redo the electrical because it was union code stuff and you couldn't get, like I had to do it. And like, oh, how did that get fixed? Well, I don't know. But like that was my playground to do research. Yeah, and at the same time, I'm doing computer science classes.
So at this point, what are the years now we're in when you're at Georgia Tech?
Yeah, so this is like, so I graduated high school in 2000, so I'm 2000, 2001, 2002.
Okay.
Yeah, and remember,
the reason I ask is because I want to, if I can get it, a kind of capsule description of the computer field at that point.
Yeah.
What do we know? What don't we know at this point?
Yeah, that's right. So at this point, fundamental computer science is kind of been invented. It's still a nascent field, right? You still have, theoretical computer science. You still have networking. Mobile is starting to become a thing. We didn't have these kinds of things quite there yet, but and so it's really early. I mean, I'm at the sweet spot, right? You have computer science moving into mobile, and I'm like right in the middle of this like revolution. And so this is when I'm already thinking about this. I was actually one of the first. Actually, I could say that first computer science grad students at Georgia Tech to know how to program the mobile phone. This is when we had the flip phones, we had the Nokia phones.
Right.
Like I was like known as the phone programmer because I taught classes even though I was a grad student. I was early kind of in this mobile like sensor area. And because of the home was the platform. It's like, oh, we're going to make a smart home that could take care of people inside of it, maybe for elderly, for home health care, for sustainability. Like it was just like...
You've said the magic word sensor.
Yeah.
Describe that. What's involved in that?
So the sensor thing is like, right now, if you think about information, it's like the thing that somebody curates, right? You go to the internet, somebody's curated something or written something. That's your information. But there's also more information in the world, which is the thing that could be observed. So if you build a sensor that can get a light reading or a temperature reading, now you have another observation of the world that's digital that you can do something unique with. So now it's like, what can I detect in the environment that I could do something with? I could detect that somebody has fallen, so I can do something there. I could detect that somebody's getting fatigued, so maybe I might want to intervene. So I started to get this sense, there's not enough data right now, and so how do we build sensors to get more data about the world? Either on the body or in the home. So that's when I started to dabble in the sensors area.
Now, where in the world is the best work being done at this point in sensor?
Yeah, I mean, Georgia Tech luckily was an area.
This was important there. People recognized it.
Yeah, but because remember, I got into research early, and so I started publishing as an undergrad. So I actually, got to conferences early. So I started to get exposed to researchers in this area worldwide, and so I knew the communities and kind of the different areas. So I started to get to know faculty. I happened to be in a place, and it just like the thing I can't resolve in my head is if Gregory didn't pull me into this space or like encourage me to go into this space, if I went with another faculty member, would I have done this? I don't know. I actually don't know. Let's say I would have gravitated to networking. Would I become like a networking researcher?
Right. It's a fair question.
It's a fair question.
You will never know the answer.
I don't think I would, though. I think that eventually, maybe later on in grad school, I would have
You would have been attracted
because
back.
think of what I do. Like, look at my table. Like, I have all this stuff. Like, I literally build all kinds of random stuff. So I needed to be in an environment in a computing field which was broad. Like, I had to be in an area where I could do the electrical engineering, the computer science
What
stuff,
are you holding?
Mechanical. So this is a 3D printed trachea for some of our health research projects. Life size. It's not mine, but somebody else's. MRI to patient, 3D printed a trachea.
Okay.
Yeah, that's roughly life size.
So you were probably, fortunately, on the route you might have
been anyway.
Likely gotten to.
And then I think about like, why did I go to that seminar? It's because when I read the description, oh, that's me. So probably it was going to happen anyway.
Now, do you need to do an undergraduate thesis, or is that not part of
it? I did undergraduate research, but you could do a thesis option or class option. So I was only an undergrad for 2.5 years because I had a ton of high school AP and IB credit.
Right.
I had, like I said, I had a battle plan. I was going to do research, so I'm done with undergrad in 2.5 years.
Okay.
And I'm already in the PhD program. So I applied, but I stayed at Georgia Tech because I didn't feel like I was there that long. So because if you're there doing your full 4 years, it's like, okay, I would need a change. But it doesn't feel like I was there that long. I had research momentum, so I stayed with my advisor to do my PhD at Georgia Tech.
And that was not fear of the unknown. That was just
like momentum. And then I looked at other places, and this was still the best place for me.
Okay, so I get you to a thesis, certainly for PhD.
Yeah.
How do you choose the thesis? What is the direction?
This is the fascinating part. So, most times, and this is how I teach my students is that, here, what's your research? So you do a little bit of research in your first year, you do your qualifying exam, and then you kind of know what your thesis is. I didn't know what my thesis was until my 4th year. And this is what I think Gregory did really well. Gregory's like, this guy's just all over the place. But let's not try to focus him. Let's let him do it all. So I had I published in so many different, I wouldn't say different areas, but different types of projects. I had the breadth of the types of stuff I did was just like, he did hardware, software, he could do machine learning, he could do health-related stuff, sustainability, whoa. And I think Gregory realized that, you don't want to rein him in. There's no reining. This is how he operates. This is his research. He's able to bring together lots of different disciplines and do unique things in computing, right? It's like he's not just narrowly focused on one thread in computing. He's broadening computing. So
you were lucky again.
That he let me do this. And this, at the time, one would be criticized. You're not a computer scientist. You don't have a focused area. You're never going to get a faculty position because you're not an expert in one thing, right? But for him, it was like, no, do your thing, right? And then I finally do have to do a thesis, and I had so many publications. I said, this is my thing. It's the sensors area. So I did a thesis on sensors, and it turned out this sensor, so basically using the signals that are already around us for sensing, which is kind of my mantra, ended up becoming a field that a lot of stuff got built up. I was fortunate to get the MacArthur Fellowship. That's because of my thesis work. Little did anybody know that this person that's all over the place that didn't think was a computer scientist got a MacArthur Award, right? But it was in this area because and I think what Gregory did was because he allowed me to dabble, it allowed me to stumble across an area that nobody else would have stumbled across if you took the traditional path.
And of course, that's one of the key elements of a free research environment where it's not a specific goal, it's letting the inquirer inquire.
Yeah, exactly.
So you benefited from this. But you know what I want to now talk about as we build your career together is the moral environment in which, and by a moral environment, I simply mean you're not just interested in the technology of things, you're interested in goals that it might address.
Yes, totally.
When does that start?
That was I would say undergrad. That was undergrad when it's like, hey, because I'm taking the classes too, right? And it's like, I'm not really interested in making that processor 1% faster or that networking algorithm better where I'm, a few million more packets are going through. I'm hands-on. I want to see the direct impact of the work I'm doing, right? Not the indirect impact.
Okay.
And the other thing is like, man, I have this powerful tool, which is computing. And how can I address society with this powerful tool? And so and remember when I was talking, when I could have been a doctor so that's when I started to think about, hey, computer science could have a bigger impact than just me being a doctor, right? And I started to learn that in undergrad and grad school. And that's when I was like, no. Like the basic science research where you're just getting an incremental improvement on something that's already been published is not me. It's really moving the needle. New sensing approaches, taking this whole field of computing, adding some more stuff to it, and having an impact on society, be it healthcare or sustainability, is where I wanted to be. So
the health framework, which has gotten more and more important in your work.
Yeah, that's right.
Was there health issues around you? Was it just an objective reading of what society needed?
I get that a lot. Yeah, I was lucky in that we didn't have any major health issues in my family. It was just, if you think about the societal problems, you've got sustainability and you've got healthcare. It's around me enough.
Okay.
But look, I've been fortunate that there wasn't a big healthcare trigger. It was just more coming to the realization that healthcare is broken and we got to fix it.
Okay, so I'm beginning to get a sense of your intellectual ambitions for your field.
Yeah.
What are your personal ambitions? How do you now get with the PhD to the next stage?
Yeah, I had some wacky goals. So my metrics for success were not necessarily publishing a bunch of papers, which actually could be counterintuitive when you're trying to go for tenure. You got to get a bunch of papers. But But I knew you kind of do that. I knew I could do it actually. It's like, all right, that's fine. But I had some like weird goals. This was with grad school. It's like, can I do something where it impacts the lives of 1 million people? And I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's a YouTube video that gets 1 million views. It's a paper that gets 1 million citations, which actually be weird, but that's a lot of citations. If I build something that 1 million people use, my metric was 1 million people. At some point in my career, I want to get to 1 million. And actually, I probably hit that at this point because I've done startups, technology, where so we've hit 1 million people in some way. But now my goal is like 100 million. So I have and then 1 billion. So we'll talk about that later.
We will.
But yeah, I just had this metric. It's like, I don't know where million came in, but that was just my metric. It's like, if I'm not doing something that's going to get to my goal of impacting in some way.
Yes.
And when I say impacting, it doesn't have to be a positive or negative impact necessarily. It's more that what I've did has been 1 million people have observed it and made them think about something differently. It's like, aha, or cool, or That's what I wanted.
So this idea, or this strategy registered with 1 million people.
Yeah, either they used it tangibly or they saw it, whatever. So
so you've got a PhD. How are you going to do that?
Yeah, so I got a PhD, and then I'm thinking, what do I do with this PhD thing?
What do you do with it?
And so at this point, I'm like, what do you do with my, like, so I'm a tinkerer, I'm an inventor, I'm building stuff, I can write papers, and like, what career path even can absorb somebody like me? So I think, this is when working with my advisor and just thinking through, like, being a professor could actually be my playground. So I looked at being a professor differently than a lot of other faculty at the time. So I looked at being a professor as a playground to do what I just mentioned, right?
Yes.
Whereas a lot of students came in saying, I want to be an academic, I want to teach, I want to do like my scholarly work. I'll do that. That comes with the territory, and I like teaching and the scholarly work. But I came in with different. I'm like, I want to use this as a playground to have the computer science impact, right? And so when I actually interviewed okay. I had a lot of interviews, and I got lucky and pretty much got offered all the places. But I presented myself as that. I present myself as being like the prototypical computer science faculty member. And it was really fascinating. So my wife, I met my wife at Georgia Tech, who actually graduated at the same lab, by the way, computer scientist. So we both got faculty positions at a couple of different places, and eventually we chose University of Washington.
Because you could both get positions?
Well, we could get both positions at other places that we
So why here?
It's great faculty, great place to live, to have a family eventually, the tech industry, and the receptiveness of this department on the wackiness that is of me.
There was no hiding this. You were wacky, and you were the first to admit it.
Yeah.
And so you were looking for somebody who got a department that got you.
Yeah, but a lot of faculty, I think a lot of departments did understand it. There's something here, but we don't know what it quite is. So that's why I had offers at other places too. Right. But it was interesting. Even UW, I remember getting some feedback, kind of like back channel feedback, saying that, oh, he's too entrepreneurial. Like he because at the time I had already started a company too, as a grad student to like commercialize some of the work. And that was the feedback. He's too entrepreneurial.
So this was a point in the transition in the life of a computer person, where entrepreneurialism was still a kind of dodgy element.
Yeah, a little bit, and mainly not because it was like it's not the scholarly thing to do. Right, that was partly why. It's like, you're a scholar. It's not the research scholarly thing. So it was kind of odd. And so I got that feedback. So he's too entrepreneurial, and also remember, I do a lot of things. So is he going to be able to focus? Is he going to have a research agenda that students can graduate?
There are always good reasons for being suspicious of an innovator.
Yeah, exactly. Okay,
But that being said, we've got to roll back to the creation of your first company, which you said happened in graduate school. So you've done that already. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so this is kind of interesting. So I did a bunch of research in monitoring energy usage, and really I was doing it for applying it towards elder care. So making it easy to deploy sensors to monitor activities of daily living and stuff like that. Not really necessarily on sustainability, but thought a little bit about it. I got a lot of I got a Best Paper Award out of it. It was the first time this conference ever offered a Best Paper Award, and I was the first one to get it. So so I got the inaugural award. So there's a lot of publicity that came out of that, and so a lot of these entrepreneurs reached out and they're like, oh, this could be an interesting use case, and I was thinking about the same use case. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna try this because.
But how do you start a company? I mean, what do you do?
It was. I mean, again, there were a lot of resources, but Georgia Tech had this kind of tech transfer office. And I started to work with them, and they started to help me go down this path. So I was lucky enough that Georgia Tech had enough of a tech transfer office to start to dabble. And just like how I learned how to program, I learned how to become an entrepreneur. I never went to business school. It's just on-the-job training.
Does the university in that case, or did it, share your profits? What was the profit structure?
Yeah, I mean, those are always evolving. At the time, it's more of it's like a licensing revenue. So you can license the technology from the university into a company, and then there's revenue that kicks back and stuff. And so, yeah, it's even to this day, the university gets, Georgia Tech at this time, from that technology has licensing revenue coming back from that.
So I know you do it again, but this one, you sell the company at some point. Is that before you even get out of graduate school?
No. So this is one of the things that they were probably concerned about. They're like, well, he has a company and he's like becoming a professor.
Okay.
So I sold the company in 2010. So I was already a professor here in late 2008.
Okay.
So yeah.
So the University of Washington knew what they were getting.
Yeah.
They knew that you had a company as well as were interested in research.
Yeah.
And
I was working in an area that was, at the time, it's like he's very applied, which is kind of cool, but we don't know how to think about it. So my department, so we had this thing, you have a slide deck for the department, right? And it's like, oh, here's who we are. Mm-hmm. And there was this picture, I still remember, is like, it was like a flower picture. It's like, here's core computer science, and here are the areas of computer science, networking and theory and systems, right? It didn't have any of the applied stuff like health and stuff. But a year later or 2 years later, then you started to see like sustainability. Healthcare. Then I knew that the department was internalizing this, and then you see all these other departments doing the same thing. So I call this the flower diagram. That now, as the petals of the flower, now things like health and sustainability are now part of computer science, which when I started wasn't even in the diagram.
Wow.
Right. So, but I think they knew that this was going to happen, but they didn't really know how it was going to happen. But if we take on a professor that understands it, maybe they'll move us in that direction.
Ahead of the curve.
Yeah,
now, let's pause a second and talk about your wife.
Yeah.
What is her work? Is she entrepreneurial too?
Yeah.
How temperamentally, as computer scientists, are you the same?
Yeah. So she's a computer scientist.
Yes.
I would argue we're in the same field. I'm more on the technology, hardware, sensor side. She's more on the human side in the sense that she looks at user interface technology. She looks at a lot of the formative work. So why would you build this? If you built this, what is the impact?
Okay.
So she's on she's at the University of Washington also. Human-centered design and engineering, which is also an engineering field that takes in a lot of computing concepts.
But you're an impact guy too.
Yeah,
I mean, that's often why you're taking on tasks because you're interested in the impact.
Impact, exactly. And she's interested in impact, and she's not she's entrepreneurial in the sense that she wants to take her innovations and have impact with it, but it's not the traditional approaches. I mean, she's trying the entrepreneurship stuff, but for her, it's really more of the scientific contributions that having impact. She'll do it non-for-profit or open source. I mean, she wants to broadly impact it without the. I actually get a kick out of the entrepreneurship thing, which we can talk about it. Like the whole under constrained deadlines and constrained resources. Like that's kind of interesting and fun sometimes.
So the fellow who has become scholar and entrepreneur is landed in the university that gets him.
Yep.
And tell me develop your career at the university. Tell me what then happens, because
I got the right signals. So when I knew that they're taking a risk on me, but our department chair and our dean actually sent the right signals. They would use the words like, hey, the work you do is a little bit different, but the way we define, how faculty succeed or for tenure is not the normal way. The normal is like good teaching, service, and obviously research. But our dean and our chair at the time said, I have this fourth metric which is called impact, and you could define it. I'm like, interesting. So that's and at the time it's like impact was the other three. You had impact on research, impact on service, and impact on your teaching on students. But fourth was a separate category. You define impact. I'm like, interesting. And so that's why I knew there were the right signals.
They could have called it the million-person category.
Exactly, but I could define it, right?
So you progress rather quickly in terms of academic structure.
Yeah.
You come in at what level? What are you?
I come in as assistant professor.
Assistant professor.
That's a normal thing.
And
I got promoted to associate, which means you get tenure. Actually 2 years early. It's a little early. A little early. So almost all of my colleagues get they go up for tenure a year early at least. Because everybody's talented that comes in. So a little bit, almost 2 years early. But anyway, and then full professor just shortly after that. A couple of years, if not.
Well, this gives you security, God knows, to proceed intellectually and in an entrepreneurial way.
Yeah.
what are your next goals in terms of impact?
Yeah,
What?
yeah. I mean, the entrepreneur. So the goals have really been around how do we a couple things. One is
Okay.
the commercialization, the entrepreneurship is just a vehicle for me to get this stuff out there because we've got really good at writing papers. I mean, like a lot of best papers and all this kind of stuff. But I'm like, God, the best paper's great. I got this like a lot of these back here. All those are best paper awards. They're all in the,
Right.
but it's great for the students. But that doesn't mean it's going to have the impact. It just means that somebody said, "Oh, that's a great paper." So I was always passionate to take what we have and,
Right.
and push it forward. And you can't just throw it over the fence. So sometimes you have to, work in industry to help them push it along. You got to spin out a company. You got to do something to really nudge it past the kind of the journal, right?
Right.
And so I was trying creative ways to how we do that, right? So startups was one, working with industry, going on part-time leave, still supporting the university and everything, go to industry, help them do something with my knowledge and what I've learned, move them in a new direction. So that's when I started to dabble in industry and universities and commercialization. And then the university's like, whoa, what is he doing? He's got like 20 hats on. But it all works. This is what you need to do to have impact.
Was this articulated as a question to you?
No, not really.
No,
They
no.
knew I had a plan. Yeah.
Give me some
Yeah.
disadvantages. No, let me put it another way. You might even, as the kind of person you are or
Yep.
seem to be, might even have made industry your total work, or were you always interested in the playground?
No, I playground. So like I said, I view the professorship as a playground to do my creative work, right? So I can, as a professor, I mean, I can pretty much, my research agenda is whatever
Right.
And really at the end of the day, it's also the students, right? If I can get talented, creative, excited, kind students, I gave the ACM Prize in Computing reception talk, and one of the things I said, the student I would always take over anything else is the kind student. The technical stuff I can teach, kindness is most important to me. Right,
Define a kind student.
I mean, it's just like, it's the one that's not the competitive one. It's not the one, it's like the kind, like you gotta be, like kindness is for me, is the highest priority for me. Because those are the students you can have a collegial relationship with. You can get them to think creatively, broadly. But anyway, so the right students can help nudge me in the right directions too. So I had a research agenda, but really my path through my research career was my students helping and guide and empowering them. But yeah, but it's still my playground, right? So I can go to industry, do this thing, and I can come back and do that. Because I do things in the increment of maybe 2, 3, 4 year things. After 3 or 4 years, I get bored and do the next thing, right? So if I'm in industry, there's no way I could be in industry unless I have an incredible amount of intellectual freedom, right? Because I'm going to do the next big thing. I'm not going to just work on this thing because at some point I can hand it off to society and they can push it forward, right? And so in academia, that playground is really important. So industry wouldn't have been a great fit for me right out of the get-go. But now, I mean, I have industry relations. I do a lot of things with industry, right?
Well, let's get to your second company.
Okay.
And what led to it, and what was its focus?
Yeah. So first company we sold,
Right.
and then which was all in the smart home space, which actually had a pretty nice impact in actually invented a whole field, which was great. The next one was a low power sensor company. In fact, I still have the original prototype that the student built. So this became this product, which is a sensor in the home. And then it was like, hey, let's get this out there. I worked with a colleague.
So a sensor in the home.
Yeah, low power wireless sensor that's so low power that you never have to replace the battery. So this little coin cell battery will last 25 years. Unlike the microphone that just went out, that battery, this sensor would last for about 25 years because it's so low power. The sensor that we built is so low power.
So one of the things, as I've read about you, and I think is apparent in what you're saying too, is the impact is going to be also a cost issue.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that you're just coming up with clever things, but you're coming up with things that are practical, that people can actually use.
Right, scale it, right? It's like scale. So the first company was around using the electrical system to monitor energy usage. So if I can listen to the power line and know what electrical appliances are on there, then I don't have to put a sensor everywhere. So scale, easy, single sensor with machine learning to do that. This one was, hey, let's use the power lines as an antenna. You already have all this electrical in the wall. can't we just use all that copper as an antenna? And so that's how this works. This sensor talks to the wall. And so again, we're leveraging the existing infrastructure so you can scale.
So what are the benefits of that? What is that?
So it's low power. So right now, if you have Wi-Fi, right? You got a Wi-Fi router in your house. If you go really far away from it, the signal goes down, right? If you add more walls in between, the signal goes down. So you add another router, right? But here, where's the electrical? It's kind of everywhere. It's in every wall. So even though I have one device that's basically receiving all the sensor data, you don't have to add all these other devices to repeat that signal because remember, the electrical is everywhere. So, so the ubiquity of the electrical system helps us out a lot.
So at what point do you wind up selling a company? I see why you create one.
Yeah, so it's kind of this 2 to 3 to 4 year thing. Do I see myself running this company for 5 years, 10 years, and IPOing it? No, I think I want to get it to stable state, and then who else can take it and accelerate it? So we sold it to. The first company was sold to another company who could accelerate it. Next company sold it to a company that can accelerate. So we get it to a point where now it's mature enough that now a bigger company can take it on.
Okay, so when do we get rid of this company? This next one.
This one was 2013, 2012, probably 2012.
2012. So the first one gets sold 2010.
Yeah.
Next one gets sold
2013, I guess.
2013, barely 3 to 4 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so you've done that, been there, done that.
Yeah, I've been there.
What's the next big?
Yeah, and this is then where, at the same time, we've got a vibrant research group happening, right? And so this is when we started to say, hey, I already started doing this work when I started as a professor, is how do we use mobile phones for diagnostics and screening?
Right.
And this is solving the healthcare problem. This is also the same realization. What's the most ubiquitous thing that I can build off of? It's the phone. I think, what is it? In a couple of years, it's predicted there's going to be more phones than people in the world, mobile phones, which is crazy to think about. But this is the most ubiquitous thing out there, and it's very powerful. This phone, just from a few years ago, is more powerful than the ultrasound machine that you have in the doctor's office, right? So that's when I started thinking, hey, now if I could supercharge this thing, what can I do from a health standpoint? And this was a pretty wacky concept too. People were like, "You're doing what? You're using a phone to do a diagnosis?" But little did I know that this would actually become a whole research field. But yeah, so this is an area we started working on pretty much when I started. But then after the sustainability work and the home sensing work, I started to put more emphasis on this one because I really wanted to make good strides in this space.
And you're in that right now. You haven't sold this.
I actually did.
Oh, you did? Okay. To whom?
So this one was a company called Synosis, where we built a bunch of tools. We had an asthma tool, which used the microphone to diagnose asthma. We had an app that looked at using the camera and flash to do non-invasive blood screening. So maybe hemoglobin in your blood. You take a picture of the baby to get bilirubin in their blood. You could do sleep assessment just using the sensors that are already on the phone. And so we created that company, and then that got acquired by Google. Probably 2 years later.
Okay, now you work with Google right now. So the company got sold, but your expertise has become associated with projects there.
Yes, exactly. So we sold the company, and part of the deal was to help Google with healthcare, because they're like, okay, we need that technology, and we kind of need you to help do this. But they were really great about this. Google's a very progressive company in the sense that they know how to work with academics. So where they're like, okay, no, you can be a professor and work at Google. How many companies would do that, right? And so they understand the value of having foot in academia, and they also understand the value of me helping Google do this.
You may have answered this already, and we're coming to the end of this, but where is your head right now, or your heart? Either organ.
Yeah. It's my competition or my heart is not necessarily per se UW or Google, or it's like I don't know, battling disease. It's like my competition is, or I have a bigger mission, which is solving health disparities, democratizing healthcare. That's where my heart is, and however I get there are the enablers for me, right? But yeah, I mean, right now I spend a lot of time at Google, but also at the university, and I just make it work, right? But right now I have a mission, which is around healthcare, and that's what I'm going to solve.
So that's the last word. Thank you very much.
Thanks.